Dan Lanning took over a pretty nice little recruiting situation at Oregon from Mario Cristobal and seems to have, despite the transition and all the issues that come with it, off to a good start rolling toward 2022. We got Eric Scopel on the line from Duck Territory on 247 Sports. Please like the video, share these videos out on social media, and subscribe. Eric, good to see you. How you doing?
Doing all right. Busy week. Signing period. This always is fun, and Oregon got some stuff done.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being here. As we size up the class, you let me know before we started to record that speed, of course, you can't teach speed, and college football has always, coaches love or enamored with speed for obvious reasons, but especially in today's game, you have to have it.
Ducks went and got some track speed, and I think anybody who knows what Oregon stands for in terms of its athletics knows that runs hand in hand with what the program has represented for a while, and Oregon went out and signed. This is pretty notable from Dan Lanning. 15 signees, but 5 of them have run 10.7 or faster in the 100 meters, which is fast, which is very, very fast. And three in the secondary at corner: Jaleel Tucker, Jaleel Florence, Kamari Terrell, all 10.7 100-meter times in track. And then a couple of linebackers, Devin Jackson, Harrison Taggart, have run sub 10.7. And I think the fact that you have a 210-pound linebacker in Jackson who's run 10.54 in the open 100 before is really notable. And I think you think about the way Dan Lanning's defense played at Georgia and just the inability teams had to get off tackle, or the plays that were made in the screen game, because the Bulldogs are really, really fast running sideline to sideline. Oregon, at least kind of initial, I think, thoughts on this class are you've got some guys that can go out there and do that. I don't know if that happens day one. A lot of these guys, I think, are, I don't want to say projects, but probably aren't playing a ton of football in 22, but down the line, you can kind of see what Dan Lanning is looking for in this cycle. Speed is definitely the name of the game.
Eric, when you think speed, you think position players, but that's or skill position players, and that's not necessarily the case. When you think speed at Oregon, you also discard the line play, but Mario Cristobal turned this into a line-heavy, especially on the offensive side of the ball, program, and you're a bit concerned, as others are, in regards to having volumes of skill position, high-end talent at those skill position sets.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think that, and I know I might have talked about it on your show as well, Mark. Just like I felt like Oregon was going to go heavy running back receiver this cycle, and they didn't. You look at what they brought in. They brought in 2 players that play running back or wide receiver in total. In running back Jordan James, which was a big signing day flip from Georgia. One of, I think, the most impressive parts of this cycle was getting that commitment. Oregon really needs running backs. They only have 3 returning at scholarship. James probably comes in as a chance to play right away. And then at receiver, Oregon's lost a ton to graduation, to transfer, to the NFL. I would say 4 of the team's top receivers during the course of the season are no longer with the team going in 2022. I thought, and I think the previous staff thought this way too, because they went out and had verbal commitments from 4 of them, that Oregon would go pretty wide receiver heavy in 2022, and that was not the case either. They only signed 1, and that was in-state prospect Justice Lowe out of Lake Oswego, and I like his game a lot too. I just was a little surprised maybe in the lack of skill position players signed there. And we asked Lanning a little bit about, okay, is there more need for running back? And he said something that was kind of interesting, because obviously the portal's there. They could go out there and find a guy or 2, but he did say that don't be surprised maybe to see them get creative on offense. He kind of noted that just because we only have 4 quote unquote running backs doesn't mean we don't have other ways or other players that can play in the backfield. He noted you could see receivers maybe filling in back there. So kind of an interesting, I think, dynamic with this class is you look at it, 15 signees, I think 10 are on defense, 5 are on offense, but of those 5 on offense, 3 are offensive linemen. The Ducks didn't sign a quarterback, which traditionally you like to do each cycle, and they only signed 1 running back and 1 wide receiver. A little bit different from most cycles, but clearly they feel confident in getting that to work. I just was a little surprised because especially at running back and receiver, I think they have like a combined 11 or 12 players brought back at those 2 positions. I kind of thought they would go a little heavier this cycle.
We got Eric Scopel on the line talking Ducks. You can catch his complete work at Duck Territory there on 247 Sports. And it is 247 that ranks Oregon at number 3 in the Pac-12, number 25 in college football. Eric, when you look down the list, obviously people gravitate to the guys with the highest ranking and the most stars next to their name. But is there a player or 2 or 3, however far you want to take it, that intrigue you?
I think there's quite a few guys that are interesting. Oregon went out and, as you said, they got some 4-star recruits. And then again, you don't have a top 25 class nationally, which I think is quite an accomplishment, by the way, considering the context of what Dan Lanning went through without having some blue chippers. But I look at a couple of guys on the lines. I think Michael Wooten as an offensive tackle projects to be somebody who can be a difference maker at some point. I don't think that's right away. I don't think it needs to be right away, which is the luxury you have with returning, your 6 or 7 of your top offensive linemen from a year ago. I think at some point that Wooten could be a guy who is your left tackle or your right tackle, depending on how he develops. I'm not talking 22, probably 23, but he's intriguing. He's got great length, athleticism. He's got good feet for a big guy. And again, just kind of a middling 3-star recruit by I guess national standards. So I think that's one to watch. Anthony Jones, who was a late addition that signed back in December, an edge player who I believe is already enrolled. Pretty intriguing. Was a guy that they kind of got in on late, flipped him from Texas. Big, athletic, moves well. And then his high school teammate, Sir Mells, is another guy in the front 7. They both played at Liberty High School in the Las Vegas area. 6'5", 300-something pounds, big interior body. I know, speaking with Sir, that Dan Lanning kind of pitched him on being a Georgia-like interior defensive lineman, with just the big body and frame. And that's a challenge sometimes out west, is finding bodies like that, just because, to be frank, the Southeast has more of them and probably better players at that position group. So if Mells can develop from, again, kind of a middling 3-star recruit into somebody who can be a contributor, that's a big victory. And I think I'll look forward towards the next couple of years is how Oregon recruits interior defensive linemen. Is Dan Lanning able to have some success in the Southeast? And Tosh Lupoy, who obviously have experience down there. Tony Tuioti was at Nebraska. Does he have some experience maybe in the Texas, Oklahoma, the Southwest? Can have some ties down there? Because frankly, it's outside of Los Angeles and sometimes Seattle and Salt Lake City, there's just not a lot of big time interior defensive linemen. And thought Oregon did a good job with getting some guys this cycle, but going forward, it'll be interesting to see kind of where they target those players.
Devin Jackson's the guy at the top of the board. He's got a top 150 ranking overall at linebacker, top 12 at his position, first rated player in the state of Nebraska. Oregon going out to Nebraska. They've made some ties out there, and they went to Omaha for Devin Jackson. Give us a little bit on Devin Jackson.
Yeah, I mentioned him a moment ago. He's the guy who runs 10.54 in the 100. So speed, athleticism. He and Harrison Taggart, the 2 linebacker commits, are both really, really fast. I think that's attractive. I think Devin Jackson reminds me a little bit of a current Oregon linebacker, and that's Adrian Jackson, who's been kind of a specialty player to this point. I think everybody's been kind of waiting for Adrian to emerge as a star, and maybe that doesn't happen, but maybe Devin Jackson's the one that does. Kind of similar body types, frames. Both have played coming into Oregon, are going to play linebacker, but had been playing a little bit of defensive back, a little hybrid, and both have great speed and wheels. So I like Devin Jackson a lot. I don't think he's probably much of an immediate contributor, just because Oregon brings back some really, really talented linebackers. But again, this is a recruit who down the line, probably 23 and 24 and beyond, could be a starter and could be a really good player.
And then we've got, you've alluded to July Tucker. You've also mentioned Jalil Florence, 2 top 20 cornerbacks. A little bit more on those 2 guys.
I think if there's a position group Oregon really addressed, it was corner. Those 2, Jalil Tucker, Jalil Florence, and then also Kamari Terrell out of Texas. 3 bigger, rangier corners, 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", I think in Florence's case, all about 180 pounds, long limbs. But again, run 10.7 in the 100, pretty quick. I think the ball skills really impressed me with Jalil Florence. That was, I would say probably one of the bigger signing day additions. I got his commitment on Monday. He had been a commitment previously, same high school as Jalil Tucker. The 2 Jalils are very close. So it kind of had felt like for a while they'd probably both end up sticking with Oregon, considering they'd both been long-term commitments. But you never know. And Oregon had to fight USC, which is, of course, a little bit revamped now with Lincoln Riley there. And Dante Williams is still there as a corners coach, is one of the best recruiters, not just in Southern California, but one of the better recruiters nationally. I thought that was a big win. But I think all 3 of those guys project as corners, but I could kind of see, especially with Florence, maybe a little bit of a hybrid role there. He reminds me of a Javon Holland, a former Oregon Duck who's now in the NFL making plays. Just go watch their tape. They're both similar size, similar movement skills, both really explosive with the ball in their hands. I wouldn't be surprised if Florence is somebody who sooner than later is a return guy, kickoff or punt. He had, I think, 4 combined punt/kickoff returns for touchdowns last year at Lincoln. So That's a player I'm really high on. And then Tucker and Terrell are similar. I think what Oregon has done the last couple of cycles is gone out and found bigger, rangier corners, and that seems to be kind of the mode, I guess, the body type they're looking for. And the three that they signed this year certainly fit that. Not to mention the fact that Oregon needed corners this cycle.
Getting our Ducks take from Eric Scopel. You can catch the complete look that he provides on 247 Sports Duck Territory. We appreciate Eric being here, breaking down the recruiting class, National Signing Day, 2 days in the rearview mirror, 25th ranked in the country. And as Eric alluded to, got to consider Dan Lanning had about 2 less weeks than a typical transition coach, which is that's difficult in and of itself. Plus they're playing ball 2 weeks later than everybody else, and he's splitting the work, and obviously he got the job done pretty well for the Georgia defense and winning a national championship. And of course that's that week 1 affair that's going to be so intriguing. Eric, I know it might be a little early to ask this question, but early feel on what Dan Lanning does different than Mario Cristobal, not just in regards to recruiting, but maybe how he may approach the job a little bit differently.
I think there's going to be similarities in terms of strengths. Obviously, both are very good recruiters. I think both, from what we've heard, connect really well with players and with recruits. I think a thing that stood out, I know Oregon obviously was hit by the transfer portal. I know I came on here and talked about Travis Dye's departure, which was really disappointing. But collectively, I think 3 different players that had entered the portal, Lanning was able to talk out of staying in the portal. And that sort of stood out to me. It wasn't just the recruiting he did to conclude this class. It was the recruiting he did to kind of keep the team in place, if you will. Obviously, the thing that I think people are curious about is offense, because Mario Cristobal was an offensive line coach. Dan Lanning's background is in defense. Oregon hasn't had a defensive-minded coach since Rich Brooks. It's been almost 20 years, or more than 20 years, I think. Close to 30 years. Gosh, I'm getting my times wrong here. Since they've had a defensive-minded head coach. And so I think you expect defense to be a priority. You saw that in this cycle. Again, 10 out of 15 being defensive players. I think offensively, we had an opportunity to hear from offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham. He's 31, really young guy, about his offensive vision. And it sounds like it's going to be an offense that moves quicker. And by quicker, I mean more plays, maybe a little more tempo. Talked a lot about it being kind of a pro style that moves fast, that want to, I guess, get in 80 plays per game, which is moving. I don't think a single team in the country did that this year. So I think offensively you might see a little bit of a difference from past years in terms of the aggressiveness. That doesn't necessarily mean, schematically you're running a pro style. I think people think under center, maybe a tight end every down, what you see traditionally from like the mid 90s, like a West Coast offense, Bill Walsh or something like that. I don't think that's what he means by pro style, but I do think offensively Oregon will look a little differently. And I guess just another thought I've had kind of looking at the way Dan Lanning has operated here is he does seem, not that Mario Cristobal wasn't using or utilizing social media to its fullest, maybe. Lanning seems to be a little bit more bought into that even than what Mario Cristobal was, how he kind of bought into it. And I think that makes sense when you look at just the age difference there. Dan Lanning being 35 years old, Mario being in his mid 40s. That youthful, I think, aspect of things will be, I think, interesting to follow and see some of those differences going forward. And I think one thing on the social media that kind of stood out to me that I don't know if others have noticed is the marriage of Oregon and Nike as brands. You see the Nike Just Do It symbol on a lot of social media stuff. Years ago, that would have been questionable to do that, but with the new NLI stuff, you kind of, maybe it's worthwhile to play up the connection with Nike. Everyone already says Oregon's Nike U. Well, let's just accept that and move on with it. And that seems like something Lanning's been more comfortable doing than Cristobal.
What are your initial thoughts from a treetop perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always a tough situation whenever you have a new coach, especially the timing of it, right in the middle, right before that early signing day. And, this is a tough transition. Again, probably half of this class is Cristobal's guys, half of this class is Lanning's guys. But obviously, Cristobal was recruiting at such a level that I think any coaching staff would appreciate the guys that they were going after. Some really top flight players, but I just really like the defensive side of it. Dan Lanning is a defensive guy. Oregon's always been known as an offensive school. But just this week, just yesterday, signing day was a big day. We had all the coaches get interviewed in-house at the U of O. And then we had kind of a unique opportunity to see into what are they going for next, because they were talking a lot about this class. That's fine. But they were really focused on that 2023 class. So I do think that you're going to see a lot of speed. They want to bring back the excitement of Oregon. They want to run a pro-style offense with a lot of plays. Kenny Dillingham said he wants to run 80 plays out of the pro set. I think the pro set might be changing over time. I think today's pro style may be a little different than 10 years ago's pro style, but it's exciting times right now. So we're really fired up. There's a lot of guys who are here, like you said, in the building, ready to go. And then also transfers, 5 transfers in the transfer portal, which I think is also kind of a new element to the signing day.
And what made it even more difficult for Mr. Lanning, in addition to being a new head coach, was that his season was extended somewhere in the 2-week range, more than just about any other coach that was taking over a new program. One enrolling on campus, that's a small number. Usually I'm running through these teams seeing 8-10 guys that are already on campus. That would be the athlete Anthony Jones. As we run it down in regards to 14 other players that have signed letters of intent, it's a fairly small class at 15. Who stands out to you?
Well, I think Anthony Jones is the first guy. He was a flip from Texas. He's got an edge rusher, offensive kind of attack mode guy. I think you need to be able to have guys. That's what everybody's looking for. Guys on the defensive side that can attack an offense, maybe make it more difficult for a tight end to get off of his block or get into the passing lane or, possibly rushing the quarterback, doing a variety of things. I think that outside edge position is really evolving. And I think Oregon did a really good job of promoting it with Kayvon Thibodeau. And I think this year is going to be a really big spring to be able to have him be such a headliner in the NFL draft. And I think there's going to be guys out there in the country that are saying, I want to be the next edge rusher at Oregon and get that kind of hype and be able to put myself in that sort of position. So I really like him just athlete wise. I think that's a really a great one, but I'm really excited for the speed on this team. Jaleel Florence, Jaleel Tucker, both guys that can really fly. Trajan Williams, a guy from Portland. I just think that they have Kamari Terrell is probably the fastest guy in the country at that position. They've just got some serious burners, and defensively, I think you're going to need to do that. I think that the offense has become so complex out here. There's passing offenses that are attacking every single element of the field, and every single inch you have to be able to cover. And you need guys with speed. And it's hard to teach guys with speed. Any coaches know that. Obviously, you hit the weight room, you can get bigger, but getting faster is a little difficult. And I think these guys coming in really, really, really hungry to play. Having a defensive coach really helped. I think a lot of these guys, at last maybe 3-4 years, the better players on each recruiting class have been on the defensive side. No slight to the offensive players, but I think most of the defensive classes have been really stacked in the last couple of years. So it's really exciting to see what Dan Lanning is going to be able to do with the guys that are already in the room. Bunch of sophomores, bunch of freshmen have already played. And then you really have these guys in. I don't know who's going to be the impact player off this team, this class. You always think there's going to be a guy or two coming in who might be able to shake things up and might be able to play early on. We don't really know who that guy's going to be yet, but there's some really good guys on this offense and defense. Got
Ryan Winter on the line. Appreciate him coming on board all the time talking Oregon football for us. Check out his YouTube channel, Sports Chat 503, and you got his Twitter handle right there on the screen as well. Ryan, when I don't know if Dan Lanning's addressed this or you're getting kind of a feel for him from this regard, is he basically moving his philosophies, his concepts, everything that he likes to do and believes in as a football coach, just kind of supplanting that from Georgia and moving it out west? Or does he think that he's got to be a little bit different in his approach to this conference, to this part of the country?
That's a great question. I really think it's the latter. I think historically most coaches come with the kind of the blueprint. They come in, they either have guys that fit that mold or they go find guys immediately. We see this across the country where you have coaches come in and basically, in essence, almost fire guys from or try to push guys out of their program and replace them with guys who they're more comfortable with in their system. I think Dan Lanning's coming out here with his coaching staff, coming out here to really fit the team that's already here. I think there's talent here. I think a lot of times when you have a coach leave, oftentimes it's a rebuild. And Oregon's not the case. Oregon is a team that's on the rise, a better team in the Pac-12, not the best team, but one of the better teams, one of the premier programs in the West. And I do think that they're not rebuilding. I think USC is rebuilding. Now they're going to try to go through the transfer portal and rebuild it like tomorrow. They have a lot of talent in the room. They could flip it pretty quickly, but there's a pretty good rebuild there. Not at Oregon. Oregon is ready to go. There's players here. There's a system. out there somewhere that these guys can kind of create that's going to fit these players. And I do think it's going to be a very fast system. I think they're going to attack on defense off the edge. I think a lot of edge guys are going to want to come out here. A lot of linebackers are going to really have a lot of success here. The linebacker room right now is really stacked. Some of the best linebackers we probably ever had in the program are playing together at the same time. If we can see if Justin Flo can stay healthy, play a season with Noah Sewell, I think Noah Sewell is going to be the next NFL player off this team that's going to have some pretty big news going forward. And I just think that the sky's the limit right now. We're really excited. We're not thinking NFL championship or bust kind of stuff or whatever. We're thinking just try to get right back to the Rose Bowl, get back to winning Pac-12 championships and see where we're at the end of the day.
Got Ryan here talking Oregon football. We always enjoy the conversation with Ryan. Check him out on Sports Chat 503 right here on YouTube. And while you're at it, hit the like button as well. YouTube loves that algorithm, so it doesn't make us feel any better. But please hit that like button. It helps get these videos out into the YouTube traffic, and subscribe right here, the Voice of College Football. Ryan, while we're on the Dan Lanning beat here, and in regards to the transition that he's making, you hit on the offense and the defense from a nuts and bolts standpoint and a conceptual standpoint of what it's going to look like in terms of an alignment and approach. Dan Lanning versus Mario Cristobal. Of course, we're going to know so much more about the differences in how they run a football team once we're 5, 6, 8 games into a football season. But are you getting an indication based on what's coming out of his mouth and how he's approaching recruiting? And that's pretty much all it's been to date, what Dan Lanning brings to the table that may or may be similar or different than Mario Cristobal.
Love it. Another great question, man. The voice of college football, Mark, knock it out of the park. Home runs every time. I think the easiest way to see this is in how they're dressing. I think for the first time, we've had a coaching staff that actually wears the sneakers. Oregon's known for having this connection with Nike. Oregon's known for having all these different shoes that the different players have worn over the years, and nobody wore them. Chip didn't wear them. Chip was very low key, wore the white head visor, wore just a black shirt all the time. I talked with Mario about this specifically. He said he's very, very tight. He wants to wear green or black while he's here. Nothing flashy. He wanted to tone down the uniforms. He wanted to tone down the uniform combinations. He's an old school guy, so he's not that much older than Dan Lanning, but he is decades older than him in mindset. He's an old school guy. He wanted things all buttoned up. He wanted the guys looking on the sideline, all sharp. That's fine, but not flashy. And that's the first thing I saw the difference. Dan Lanning is in the sneakers. All the other coaches they're in the new gear. And I think that's a really cool thing. I mean, Cristobal, he'd wear the same shirt like every day. It felt like the same exact style of shirt. He'd be doing the interviews and the same thing. Wanted to really just kind of keep it low key. I think Oregon, has such flash to it. The connection with Nike. I think a coaching staff that's going to embrace that is really going to be big, especially now that we're in the NIL era and everything else that has to do with that and the connections there. I think you want to see the brand. We had a couple of coaches talk about yesterday on the coaches show where they had come into a Florida house and walk into the house right after Florida coaches had left the house. And all the people got up and they're like, all right, Nike's in the building. And Florida is the brand new Jordan school, and everybody loves that or whatever. But the coaches made the comment that, okay, the real big brand just stepped in. Like the real brand is here, like the real dogs. And that kind of is a different situation. Obviously, athletic budgets like Ohio State or, Alabama have a bigger athletic budget than Oregon. But Oregon is like a pet project for Nike. Oregon has the jerseys before anybody else. They have a tremendous amount of different combinations. They have a tremendous amount of swag connected to just that program alone. And this is the first, I think, coaching staff that's really trying to embrace that. And I think that's fantastic because, again, there's a lot of kids around the country who they play youth football and they play for a team called the Ducks with the best uniforms in the green and yellow. Not many other schools wear the green and yellow. Besides Baylor, there's not a lot of schools out there that really rep the green and yellow. And so it's a cool kind of a look. It's a West Coast feel. Other coaches talked about how when they go out, that they are representing the West Coast. When they think of the West Coast football, they think of wide open, they think of the spread, they think of Oregon. And so they're trying to bring back some excitement on the offensive side that I definitely think Cristobal was trying to control a little bit. I think Cristobal was much more comfortable with the ball control style offense, run the clock, take, just milk everything for what it's worth, take the air out of the ball, get a touchdown lead. It feels like 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think this is a coaching staff that's really going to air it out. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make turnovers that maybe Cristobal's era didn't do. But I think it's going to be a pretty exciting brand of football.
And, I don't pretend to have a lock on what I'm about to say, that it's gospel truth, but I get the feeling that while yourself and me, our age, we lived through the marketing decision, the evolvement, the evolution, I should say, of the Oregon brand and the flashy colors and the swag and all that, that even though that's ancient history to these kids, it's legend. It's legend, though, so they know it, and they do identify that with Oregon. And even though it's been copied a zillion times, and you've got your Marylands of the world, and then you've got everybody that's pretty much gone with the matted look and the chrome helmets, and have done various things to swag up their look, Oregon's still the one that everyone looks to as being the original and the one that still does it the best.
Yeah, I think it's the most authentic. I think no offense to any of the other schools that are trying to do that. I think that's great. I think I love all those kind of different advancements in uniforms and everything else, but there's something to be said. There is no Nike without the U of O. It's from here. It was born here. It's not forced. It's not like a fake situation. It's as absolute true as you can get it. I mean, and if you go to Eugene, Oregon, man, I'm telling you, I've seen it change. I'm from Portland, but my whole family, I have family down there. I was born in Eugene. I've been raised there my whole life or whatever, on and off. When I was growing up, we had Matt Court, which was one of the oldest courts in the entire country. Okay. It was like a broken down version of the Boston Garden. We had Hayward Field, that was one of the oldest on the West Coast, but it was legendary track town. And then we had Autzen Stadium. No offense to Autzen Stadium. It is a great venue, but it was built in a trash dump. It was built at a time when this was not really what was happening around the country, big, beautiful stadiums. So it doesn't really have that much ambiance. And since then, they've built a brand new arena for basketball. They built a brand new Hayward Field that literally looks like it was from outer space. They've added on to Autzen Stadium and beautified the north side of Autzen Stadium. And in the parking lot of Autzen, they've built a brand new baseball stadium, a brand new soccer stadium, the football practice fields, and now there's a new idea of building on the practice fields, building a new indoor practice facility, so that the old indoor practice facility could be used for all the other sports, and this would be a football only practice facility. You should see the renderings of this thing. It's a dome over the top of it in the shape of the O that lets the ambient light through the middle. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that like literally architects would just dream over, being able to get to design this stuff. This is lockstep with what Nike's doing. Go to the Nike campus. You see the HDC at Oregon. It looks just like the LeBron James building at the Nike campus. These guys are doing crazy things with the contracting. Contractors love this. These guys are getting rich out here off these Nike deals, I'm telling you. And this is a situation where that HDC was built almost 10 years ago or so, and it's still the #1 facility in the country. People are building these facilities every single year, and Oregon still gets voted as #1. So not only is it the connection with Nike, the opportunity for all the uniforms, but it's also the facilities, and it's the amount of passion that people have to try to build this program. And the kids see it, man.
Back to the more mundane, and take no offense, Andrew Boyle or Jordan Riley, just to run down those latest transfers. So there's 5 total transfers that have come in. Of course, Bo Nix is the headliner, and for anybody that wants video analysis of that, Ryan's been here in previous weeks, so those videos are posted right here. Would like to get a little bit on these two, and there's very little on them. Jordan Riley would play a handful of games at Nebraska. Has got a handful of tackles, defensive linemen coming in. Andrew Boyle just basically got his hands on the football for a punt or two and a field goal attempt at Washington State, but we'll see if they can come in and make a contribution.
And Riley comes with his position coach, Tony Tuatui. He's coming from Nebraska, so that was a connection made right there. Could be an opportunity for Riley to be able to come into a room that maybe needs some depth. There's a lot of rotation, obviously, in the defensive front. We have Taki Taimami as well, who came in from Washington. So there's 2 guys that have transferred in who both played, maybe not huge minutes for Riley, but he's been in the program for a long time. Taki's played significant minutes though for Washington. So, and then you have Christian Gonzalez, a defensive transfer as a cornerback from Colorado, and he comes with his coach, Coach Martin. So I think there's some real connections with the transfer portal, and I expect these guys to get some playing time. Now, the kicking, I'm not sure about. The kicker last year was the freshman kicker when he was the starter. His sophomore year, he kind of lost the job a little bit. Came back last year and got the job back. Camden Lewis is his name, and I expect him to be the starter. He did it, I feel like, a pretty good job this year. But I think Andrew Boyle's coming in possibly to be, maybe competition on the kicking side, punting side. I did just see a video of him dropping a freaking 70-yard field goal, off the little holder there, just like it was nothing, just threw the foot through it and it was cash. So I do really like who they're bringing in. I think the transfer portal is going to be a real dynamic part of college football moving forward. Just the idea that look at USC, they can almost rebuild a whole program in 1 year.
Ryan Winter, Sports Channel 503. Check out his work right here on YouTube, and of course subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Ryan, we always love bringing you on here. Enjoy the conversation with you.
Thank you, Mark. You're the best, man. Appreciate you. Anytime. Yeah, check me out on YouTube. I just did a live stream for 2.5 hours last night on the signing day. I'm trying to go more live like you. You've inspired me a little bit on that. So I really appreciate it. Can't thank you enough, Mark, for all you do for college football.
Thank you, Ryan.